Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Monday Night Must See TV with the Hudson Valley Squares. We've got a fun show for you here tonight. Let me introduce the panel. We've got drinking bourbon, as always, Mr. Butch Jones with his McJesus shirt on. Always
yes, sir.
Hockey.
Go Oilers.
We've got, I'm chuckling a little bit now because behind the scenes, we had a whole discussion all week long or all weekend long about Wasp. We got Bryce Speraza from Bryce Talks Metal wearing his Wasp shirt. Blackie Lawless, that's right.
Defiant.
We've got
Stick with it.
Ryan Scow
What up?
is in the house. Our center square, Karen La Preziosa.
Hello.
We've got on the show tonight from the Monsters Den, Jamie Laszlo.
What's up?
Ralph Tambora, Count Ralphus himself. He
All
just
right.
woke up, as we just heard. And of course, Chris Allo is in the house.
What's going on?
What I'm talking about.
So here is the topic for tonight, people. So first date with your favorite band. You remember that first time you saw your favorite band or one of your favorite bands? How was that very first concert experience? And did it measure up to subsequent times that you've seen the band? So I've asked everybody to pick out three bands. It could be your absolute three favorite bands, or if you didn't get a chance to see your favorite band, you know, one of your favorite bands or three of your favorite bands. And we're going to talk about that very first time we saw them and how it compared to other times we've seen them, and whether that first time was the best. Was that first date the best? Did you go all the way with the band on the very, very first time? Or was it better the second, third, fourth, or fifth time? Or years later was it even better? Did you reconnect with that with that band later on and hook up with them later on? I don't know. That's what we're here to find out. So Butch is going to kickstart us off with his first pick. We're going to go one pick at a time all the way around. So Butch, one band, and what was the first time?
Well, it's really, this one is actually two, but it's really about one. So it was October 9th, 1982, New Haven Coliseum in Connecticut. It was seeing Judas Priest and Iron Maiden together. Number of the Beast tour and Screaming for Vengeance tour. I had gotten into Maiden earlier in the spring. So this is back in the day where you could discover a band and then see that band probably a month or two later if you got the new record, which was those were absolutely the days. This show means a lot because besides seeing Maiden for the first time, and actually seeing Priest for the first time too, waiting online, I met this kid who had this mysterious magazine that I had never seen before, but it had Bruce Dickinson on the cover. And I went up to the kid and was talking to him. I went by myself. My wonderful mom drove me, sat in the parking lot, and let me go into the show by myself. I was 15, and this kid had Kerrang magazine. I had never seen it. I had never heard of it. I started flipping through it, and I said to the kid, you know, where did you buy it? And it was this record store called Cutler's in New Haven. And I didn't have enough time to run and go get it. So I asked him, can I buy yours? And then you just go buy another one because you live here, it's around the corner. He said, oh, sure, no problem. That show, that magazine completely helped transform my life, or change, not transform because I was already very deep on this path, but anyway, but getting Kerrang for that first time and reading all of these bands that I had never heard of, or I had heard mythic tales about, but I had never heard yet. It was all right there. And then finding a place in near me, a Record City in Poughkeepsie, New York, that ended up also selling Kerrang, and that was it. After that, Record City took all my money every 2 weeks. But yeah, that show, seeing Maiden for the first time, was just tremendous, and seeing Priest for the first time. Was it the best time that I saw Maiden? No. One, it was awesome because it was the first time I'd ever saw them, but they were opening. So the next year for me in '83 on the Peace of Mind tour, which is my favorite Maiden album, seeing them at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center here in Poughkeepsie. So it was Maiden, Fastway, and Coney Hatch. That was the best time I think I've ever seen Iron Maiden. That was tremendous. And then saw them the subsequent tours after that. Power Slave was phenomenal too, but that first time was magical, but Peace of Mind was the second one for me. So awesome.
Who else was at that Civic Center show?
We're the only ones that are old enough. I was 83.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I would say the show at the Civic Center and the Radio City show on Slave was
I
was at that
Queensryche.
show.
Yeah,
Queensryche, that was awesome too. Absolutely.
pretty amazing. All right, so this will be interesting because Bryce is a little bit younger than the rest of us, so it'll be interesting to
A
see
little
what
bit.
he's got. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Bryce,
Just
what
I
do
got
you got?
underpants older than that kid.
Well, yeah, for me, like my top 3 favorite bands right now. Well, I mean, one of them is Wasp, and I've only seen them the one time just now, so I couldn't really do them. Another one I couldn't do, and then I just went with like Judas Priest as my first choice here. Classic band, they're in my top 5 for sure. Sometimes they're in the top 3, just depends on the day. But 2014 was the first time I saw them. My parents took me for my 18th birthday, basically. So it was my parents and my brother and I. This was in 2014 at the Gwinnett Center in Gwinnett, Georgia. Had Steel Panther opening it up, which was interesting, of course. And the way that happened is because Russ Parrish, I assume, the guitarist of Steel Panther, was in that band Fight with Rob Halford. So I feel like there's like a connection there. Maybe they're friends, and later on Steel Panther opening for Judas Priest. But it was a great show. It was the Redeemer of Souls tour blended with a Defenders of the Faith tour, like 30th anniversary. So I got this pretty cool shirt there to celebrate the 30th anniversary. So they broke out a couple of songs they wouldn't normally play, like Jawbreaker and Love Bites, which was cool to see. They opened the concert with Dragonaut, which is a really cool track from Redeemer of Souls. Great modern song from them. It was super cool seeing the curtain drop, the guys standing there. It was the only time I got to see Glenn Tipton, because shortly after that, he had all the trouble with the Parkinson's and he couldn't really tour. But that was amazing. And I've seen them 4 times now. My second favorite, that is my favorite, seeing them the first time. It was just magical and amazing. They're one of my favorite bands ever. So to see them was really special that first time. But my second favorite, I'd probably say, is this year, actually, at Amerisbank Amphitheater in Georgia with Queensryche opening. Another really great show. They broke out a lot of really cool kind of deep cuts for that. I mean, it's not a deep cut, but they played Painkiller at the one I saw this year. They didn't play it the first time. That's my favorite song by them. So that was cool to see. But I'm going to have to go with that first time in 2014 as being my favorite time seeing Priest.
Cool. First cut is the deepest, right?
Oh, yeah.
The first time.
First time. Yeah.
All right, Ryan, what do you got?
All right, so as it just works out, it dovetails that for years of my teenage years, my favorite band was also the first concert I went to. So I'm older than Bryce, but I'm younger than some of you folks. So my first concert was September 11th, 1998. And I was 16. It was a little over 16. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go to shows before that because I just didn't know people that went. You know, it just worked out that way. Because some people started when they were like 13, 14, 15. But I was 16.
10.
And I went down. We took the bus down to the Port Authority in Manhattan. We walked over to the Roseland Ballroom, and we saw Fear Factory and my favorite band in the world, Slayer. So the first tour I ever saw was a Slayer concert with Fear Factory opening. Yeah, that's a hell of a thing. I mean, I know this is obviously they were touring for Diabolus Musica, which is not the best Slayer album, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, or the sixth, or going down the line. But I have some nostalgia for it because of my age when I got into them. But yeah, it's a hell of a thing to have a Slayer be your first concert. That's not like dipping a toe in and like easing in. You just jump right in. Obviously, tremendous pits. People are still, because even as the Slayer went on and the albums kind of declined, depending on your taste. The intensity of the shows really did not. Like, people were still going fucking nuts for Slayer every time I saw them. Like, huge pits, people going crazy, screaming Slayer. And even though I was young, I weighed a lot less there. I was a lot more skin and bones. So I tried to go up front. That didn't work out too well for me because you get that whole pit crush, where people just pushing up. You're like, get the air forced out of your lungs. That was an interesting thing. I love Fear Factory too, so that was cool. So yeah, that was a great concert. I saw them many times after that. But again, unfortunately, I wasn't, old enough to see them back in the day, like 84, 85, 86, some of those legendary shows. So there's no one Slayer concert that kind of stands out in my head as like the one, because it was always like, at that point, they were institution by like the 90s and beyond. They came out, they did their thing, it was good, but it wasn't like that intensity, the early days from a lot of the footage I've seen. So the last time, I'll talk about the last time I saw Slayer, which I thought was good too. It was November 29th, 2014. I didn't go to some of their final shows. I kind of wish I did, but I didn't. With Suicidal Tendencies and Exodus at the Wellmont Theater in Montclair, New Jersey. And at this point, obviously, Jeff had passed away. And I did see a whole bunch of shows when Dave came back. So now Dave was back out again and was bossed off. And I thought it was great. I went with some friends. We had to get seats. I'm not a seats person. And to see Slayer from seats is kind of sacrilege to me, but whatever. I did it. But I thought the set was great. They played tons of energy. It was awesome. They were no longer my favorite band at that point and haven't been for a while because they were just kind of releasing shitty albums, I thought, for long. But you know what? Had a great time. And yeah, I feel like, I don't know if this is my experience, but the older I get compared to like my teenage years, I don't know, I get way more in the concerts now. Like when I was a teenager, I don't know if I was just I don't know. It's hard to quantify this, but I'd go watch the show and I'd enjoy it. And it was great. But now I'm like, if anybody that's gone to concert to me in the last couple of years, I'm much more of a pain in the ass. I don't know. I just get more into it now. I have more of a fun. I enjoy the experience more, which is kind of, I think, a weird thing most people would say as they get a little bit older, but that's me. So I don't know. I enjoyed the later show more than the earlier show. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if anybody else had that experience, but yeah. So that for me, it is Slayer. That's what I'm going with. And I'm sure some other people have stories of seeing Slayer in the 80s. And I'd love to hear them.
Something tells me you would have loved that Slayer show at the Chance on the Rain and Blood tour.
I've seen a ton of great YouTube footage of old Slayer shows, and I know all people have seen it back in the day. And
that was nuts.
Yeah, it wasn't the same when I started going to see them, but they still, even when they were putting out albums I didn't care for, they'd always play the old shit. They always played it with conviction, and they always were great. So I can never fault them for that.
All that matters. Yeah. Cool. All right, Karen.
Oh, okay. This is a pretty everybody who knows me knows I love Sabbath, Ozzy Sabbath in particular, and I never got to see them. I didn't want to pay a lot of money to go stand at some like hot racetrack and see this big and hear bad sound. I didn't want to. I wouldn't do it. So I never saw them at Ozfest or anything like that. So I finally got to see them when they were touring for 13. And that's when they were a little Paranoid heavy on that tour. And after that, it was more the first record. But the first time I saw them when they started playing War Pigs, I felt like a teenage girl going to see the Beatles at Shea Stadium because I started I got choked up and I started to cry, and I was with some person as a friend of mine who was not into Black Sabbath at all or any kind of music for that matter. He just wanted to go for the experience, and I felt like, I don't know, I felt like all alone, but I was crying like a 13-year-old girl. I was just like, it was so crazy. And yeah, I'll never forget that at all. It's burned in me. And then after that, every time they came around, I must have seen them like 6 times. And yeah, they were all great, but nothing topped that first one. Yeah, I went all the way that night, Pete. Yeah.
You're in your feelings on that one.
Yeah, and it was at a great arena too. It was at the casino in Connecticut.
Mohegan Sun.
Yes, and it's really small. What is it, like 10,000 seats?
Yeah, it's a 10,000 seater.
It was great. It was like you were walking around there, and it was a huge mall-like atmosphere with all these metalheads and old ladies still feathering their hair back, wearing the denim skirts and stuff. I thought I was like in the 80s, but it was a great time. It was really, really cool. And I spent the money. I got like first section. They were right in front of me, and it was definitely worth it. Yeah.
What year was that?
Gosh.
Sabbath played Mohegan Sun with Ozzy in the last time was 2016, but I believe they also did it in 2014.
That's it, because they were touring for 13, right?
Right. So 2014 was the 13 tour.
13, yeah.
2016 was the end tour.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was great, and I it was everything I hoped they would be. I mean, they were so to watch Geezer and Tony like play together. It was magical to me. You know what I mean? It was great that Ozzy was there. Don't get me wrong, but like to really see them groove and gel together it was awesome. And it's 50-something-year-old me was still impressed. You know what I mean? I tend to be a little jaded, but I was blown away.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jamie.
All right. Last time I was on Hudson Valley Squares, we were talking about our top 3 favorite artists, but we were talking about our least favorite songs. So I'm going to stick with my top 3 that I used then. And I'm going to go with Soundgarden, number 3, because it's also an interesting story. It's a sad story. It was 1990. This was the first time I should have seen them. I remember this guy. He was like a casual friend. I can't even remember his name, but it was a Friday early in the day. And he told me, dude, I got tickets to go to the Upstage tonight. This is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, downtown, little club upstairs, very small place. He says to see this band, blah, blah, blah. And I also got tickets to see this band next Friday called Soundgarden. He said, which one do you want to go to? And which one you don't pick, I'll take my other buddy. I'm an impatient person. I said, you know, I knew the name Soundgarden because I worked at a record store and I saw the album Louder Than Love and I stalked it, but I didn't know anything about the band. I knew the album cover looked crazy. I said, hey, I'm ready to party tonight. Let's go see band blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't even remember what that band was. And I later learned at Soundgarden show there were 12 people there. And I kicked myself all the time for not being number 13 or 14 or whatever at that show. Just it's one of those things that bothers me for the last 30 some years. So fast forward all the way to 1996. I finally see them at Lollapalooza when they were touring with Metallica on that Lollapalooza. And it was at a racetrack in someplace in Maryland because I was living in Virginia at the time. And we drove up there. And I remember we were there all day. I saw this band called Corner Shop. I don't know if you guys remember. A Brimful of Asha was their MTV. They were like an Indian indie pop rock band.
Mhm.
And I got high with the band behind the third stage. So I was ready to go. And I went up to the stage and Method Man was rapping on stage. And I was right up close for Method Man because I was getting my spot for Soundgarden. And Method Man was pretty heavy, actually. He I don't know what he did. He was rapping, but it was heavy sounding. So Soundgarden starts, and I'm in all my glory. And I'll never forget, I turned around, and there's this kid. I was 26. This kid, a little younger than me. And he goes, do you want to go up? I put my foot in his hands, and he threw me up, and I'm body surfing to Soundgarden. And it was intense. It's such a weird feeling. So that was great. Fast forward to 2013 here in Columbus, Ohio, we have this annual thing called Rock on the Range. It's in our stadium. It's a big festival with all kinds. They get thousands upon thousands of people, 3 or 4 stages, a comedy tent. People come from all over. Sydney Taylor's been there. I think she was talking about, she saw, who did she see there? She was talking about, oh crap, I forget. Anyways, so Soundgarden was headlining one of the nights. And I didn't have floor seats on the field, but I'm on the side and I'm jamming on the, on the seats. And this couple look at me and they go, dude, we got field tickets. Just take ours. We're not going down there. So I go running down. I'm 43 years old now. I'm down there jamming. And the guy goes, you want to go? 43 now. I'm thinking, hell with it. Have it. I've only surfed twice in my life. Both times were Soundgarden. When I was 43, I was going, oh my God, I'm going to break a hip. Oh my God, I'm going to break a hip. I got all the way up to the security guard by the stage and I thanked him. I was like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you. I did not think I was going to survive it, but it was a total blast. Which one was better? I don't know. They were both great, but I should have been there in 1990. Damn it.
Aw.
Sounds like the last one might have been the one, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't break a hip.
No, yeah, I will never ever body surf again. It's ridiculous. Body surfing is so, because I've been part of it when it, and what you got to do is to tell if somebody's about to come over your head. Look at the security guards. Look at their eyes. If their eyes go right above your head, someone's about to come over you.
They're watching.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're watching. That's what they're paid to do.
Yep.
Sure.
I've seen enough people eat shit like spectacularly where I would, they just miss one person's hands and it's bam, full force into the concrete. And I would never, because they get up and they're
But when I was 43, I came back around, and as I was coming back around, people were high-fiving me. I was like, I did it, like some moron. Moron.
All right, Chris.
All right. This was not my first show. This was actually my third concert. But I was very excited because I was finally able to see one of my favorite bands. And actually, Steve Keeler mentioned this show recently in our Hudson Valley Squares Facebook chat group on, where was it, January 24th, 1987. I went to the Capitol Theater in Passaic, New Jersey, to see Wasp, Slayer, and Raven.
Wow.
And, it was my first Slayer show, and Wasp, Bryce, they were pretty good on the Electric Circus tour, but they had absolutely fucking nothing on Slayer on the Rain and Blood tour.
Yeah, nobody would on the
How
planet.
could they?
Yeah,
No band on earth.
I mean, when you go back and when I go back and I watch like YouTube videos of Slayer from 85, 86, even 88, 89, Jesus Christ, they have so much fucking energy. I feel like you could like plug into them and light a whole city. It's unbelievable.
There was nobody better. There was nobody better.
Just untouchable. I remember they had these two big upside down crosses on the stage with them, with the different lights in them. And years later, when I interviewed Kerry King, I was like, I had heard a rumor that they bought them from Black Sabbath, and that was true. They did buy them from Sabbath. Then they changed the lights and they just turned them upside down.
That's awesome.
But they were great. They opened with Raining Blood, and they just did a bunch of stuff from the first three records. I know the set list is on setlist.fm, but it is wrong because it does not have the encore. I remember everybody was going fucking nuts for Slayer, and Tom was he walked off and then he quickly ran back on. He's like, we're not supposed to do this, but okay, we're going to do one more song. So we're going to do the shortest, fastest song we have. And they did Necrophobic as an encore, which I think is like 90 seconds.
You can't edit that, Aloe, and go in there and edit?
I could, but I don't give a fuck. If people want to think that, fuck them. I was there, so I know how it really went. I don't need to prove whatever. So, but yeah, they were great. I saw Slayer many times all over the States, in Holland, in Belgium, in Germany, in Mexico. The 3 years ago today was the final two Slayer shows in LA, November 29th, which is today, and November 30th, 2019. I went both nights to see Slayer at the LA Forum, and they were really good. I mean, I'll be honest, I definitely enjoyed the first night much better because I'd seen Slayer like 6 times on that farewell tour. And for whatever reason, this first night of the 2-night stint, they pulled out a bunch of songs that I like that they also hadn't done on the tour at all. So they did shit like Die by the Sword, Evil Has No Boundaries, Black Magic, Temptation. So I was like, holy fuck. I was like, I can't wait till the second night. But then the second night came and they only did their regular set that they had done for the previous 2 years. So it was kind of a letdown. But I did get a little misty-eyed on the second night because that was the final Slayer show. And yeah, that was my 57th and 58th Slayer shows. But I do have my shirt from 36 years ago. This is a fairly legendary concert shirt. I've seen this going on eBay for like $500.
Wow.
It says on the bottom, what the fuck does it say? I don't have my glasses. Oh, Altar of Sacrifice. It's a priest with guitars smashed into them, and on the back it has the Rain and Blood. It says, "Do you want to die?" Scrolled in
Nice.
blood with the dates. And yeah, this is probably the most valuable concert shirt I have. But yeah, I wouldn't part with that.
Chris,
Yeah.
did you see them at the fairgrounds in Middletown?
Yep, that was June 1991.
And what tour was that?
That was Seasons in the Abyss.
Seasons in the
That was
Abyss, yeah.
their third time coming through on Seasons in the Abyss. That was the
That
Clash
was
of
a
the
great
Titans
one
tour. That
too,
was
right?
Slayer, Anthrax, Megadeth, and Alice in Chains opened up.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite
Yeah.
Slayer tours.
Hmm.
Hey Chris, on that first one, how was the crowd reaction for Wasp? Were people throwing shit at him? And I've heard that happen, like they were booing
The
him
show
and
that I
stuff.
went to, Bryce, they did not throw shit at them,
Okay.
but I will be completely honest, a big chunk of the audience walked out. You know,
So it was, what was the order? It was
Raven opened up, which is
Okay.
funny. Then Slayer was the middle act, and Wasp was the headliner. And you know,
see.
back then Wasp was really big, but you know, they really kind of peaked on the second record. You know, people didn't give a shit as much with them on Electric Circus, and man, Slayer was just exploding at the time.
How could you
Yeah.
follow up Slayer? I mean,
And
no,
that's the
no band
thing.
on earth.
Yeah.
No
I
band
mean,
on earth could do
At
that.
that time, that
Yeah,
period.
Karen
blow.
mentioned the Clash of the Titans tour, which was supposed to be a triple headliner of Anthrax, Megadeth, and Slayer. Well, it was, and they were supposed to rotate, except it was in Megadeth's contract that they would never come on after Slayer because they knew they couldn't compete with them.
Yeah.
Smart guy.
So most of the tour it was Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax. But yeah, Megadeth never followed Slayer.
Whose dog?
Not mine.
That's not me.
Not mine either. It's Ralph.
It's okay, Ralph.
All right, Ralph.
Pick him up so he licks your head.
That's my job here.
Let her in. Let her
Put some
in.
peanut butter behind your ear.
I don't have to. Yeah, it's normal. I must have a peanut butter tasting head.
There you go. All right, let me run through mine, then we'll go to Ralph. So my first band is Black Sabbath. First time seeing them was on the Mob Rules tour, Brendan Byrne Arena, August 22nd, 1982. Johnny Van Zant band opening up. They got booed off the stage after about 20 minutes.
Wow.
You know, this was my first time seeing Sabbath. It was ridiculously good. I remember my friend's father dropped us off in New Jersey in East Rutherford, and he let us out of the car, and you look in the parking lot, and there's people like lighting garbage cans on fire, burning crosses in the parking lot. I remember we looked at him and he looked at us, and he had this look on his face like, I don't know if I want to leave these kids here alone, right? And we're like, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. Meanwhile, we're thinking, this is the coolest shit ever, right? But the show was amazing. It basically was the same set as Live Evil, you know, and it was amazing. It was just absolutely amazing. And I have great memories of that first time. And, you know, since then I've seen Sabbath many, many times. I've seen them with every singer, with the exception of Tony Martin. I never got to see any of the Tony Martin shows, but I saw them with Gillan, saw them with that horrible show with Glenn Hughes at the same arena. Brendan Byrne, saw them with Ozzy a bunch of times, saw them with Dio again a bunch of times. I would say the Heaven and Hell show at Radio City, again, I consider that Black Sabbath. So that was March 30th, 2007. That was the big comeback show that they filmed for the DVD. That was pretty amazing to be a part of that. Chris, I think you were at that show too, right? I mean, that was something special. I will say too, for me, seeing them with Ozzy at the end of the End tour at Madison Square Garden in February 2016, that was pretty damn special too.
Yeah,
for me,
yeah,
it was incredible. For me, it's hard to pick from the three of these, but I think for, you know, as far as like the most special night, I think the Heaven and Hell show at Radio City, the big comeback with Dio, was probably my favorite out of the three of them. Again, there are other ones too, but those are the three that mean the most to me. I think the Radio City show was probably the most special, probably my favorite. I mean, you know, they were just treated like conquering heroes, and I think we were all just so happy to see that lineup back together again. You know, it was pretty damn special. So that's my favorite.
The number
Did you have a
one
chance?
show I regret missing in my entire life is that fucking show. I
Wow.
don't know why I didn't go to it, but I want to go back in time and like punch myself as hard as possible.
I think I'm going to pull a Keeler here. I think you might have been seeing a band in the basement of a Chinese restaurant that night.
And nobody
You gotta
understands.
say it like Star Wars. No,
knows
you know,
who they
fuck
are.
that band and fuck that Chinese restaurant, because nothing would have been as good as seeing that. Because I have the DVD and I'm watching it. Every time I watch it, I'm like, I'm a fucking idiot. But you know, what are you gonna do?
Well, there's always the Blu-ray you can watch, right?
That's
Yeah.
it.
And
At this
Chris,
point.
you can always tap into my head if you want to go back to that.
Yeah, Pete's
Rutherford
Pete's
show on the
show,
Mob Rules tour,
Sabbath
right?
on the Mob Rules tour. That's my number one Time Machine show. Even though I saw that lineup 18 times, I didn't see them on the Mob Rules tour. So
Yeah, it was a great show. Great show.
Pete, did you have a chance to see the Tony Martin era and just pass at the time?
Yeah, I did. I just never, I was never in the right place at the right time. You know what it is? Tony Mart was in the band like on like the latter stages of my time in college. And then I lived in Long Island for a couple of years. So they were playing, or they played at the Civic Center. They played all around the area. I wasn't going to a ton of shows at the time. So it just didn't happen.
more
Wish
on
I-
the
I wish
Tony
I
Martin
would.
era in a bit. I'm pulling a Pete now. More in the Tony Martin era later.
But wait, there's more.
Okay.
Wait, there's more. All right, Ralph.
Right, really quick on Jamie was talking about that Soundgarden show. I caught that in 1990. They were opening up for Voivod up at the Chance, and me and all my Thrasher friends, we seen the one video that Soundgarden had out, but we couldn't care less about that. So we actually sat down at the pit during the Soundgarden show and we screamed Voivod in between every song. It was like the Nothing Face tour. And that whole entire show, somebody taped it. So the whole show is up on YouTube. And I watched it a couple of years ago and I was like, oh, wow, they weren't that bad. But we just thought it was like they shouldn't have been on the bill. And all right. So when I was a kid, we used to have to take turns with our parents driving us to shows. And it would be like, oh, my dad drove last time, your dad's got to drive. So it was my turn. And Slayer was coming around, Rain and Blood tour at L'Amour's. My dad grew up in Brooklyn. All his family was down there. So he asked me what I wanted for my 16th birthday. And I said, I want to go to this concert in Brooklyn. I didn't like really explain who, but he said, okay, that's your one gift, you know? So me and a couple of my friends, we went down. It was like sold out. They were playing 2 nights in a row down there. I forget if we went the first night or second night, but it was so packed. Jim Brewer, a few years ago, he did a stand-up about going to see the Big Four at Giant Stadium, and he talked about how the crowd smushed together and he was just bouncing around. He couldn't like move. That's how we were. We were little kids, and I remember at one point my feet weren't touching the ground, and I was so squished in, and it was like wherever the crowd turned you is what you were looking at. You know, you just like just moving around with the crowd. You know, and it was a really violent pit. Testament was really good. I just got their album like a month before, and yeah, it was one of the most life-changing experiences. I still got my shirt too. Got my original Rain and Blood shirt here.
Nice.
But you know, then a little while later, I went to the Chance show, and Dave Lombardo had quit for the first time, and now Tony Scaglione from Whiplash was playing drums. And back then, if you were under 18, you had to go upstairs at the Chance. So we were up at right on the rail of the balcony, and the band Hades from New Jersey opened up, and that was another amazing, unbelievable show. I mean, the energy, like you guys are all saying, with Slayer, was just, you couldn't top that. One of the great ones too was Pete talked about it last week when we talked about the Felt Forum, Danzig and Slayer at the Felt Forum. That show was the most violent show I've ever seen. There was so many people getting brought out in stretchers. I seen so many bloody people that night. I got a DVD bootleg of that show, and right on the back it says contains rare riot and security fight footage from the Felt Forum. One of the craziest shows ever by Slayer themselves, it says. But yeah, people started ripping up the chair seats and throwing them. It was like they had to stop playing a few times.
Wow.
Even before they came on stage, the crowd wouldn't move up from the front, and they were pressing against the monitors and stuff. So the security had to line the stage with police, and they had told everybody to take 3 steps back, and nobody would move. So
He was doing it. Yeah, it was crazy.
the show was stalled, and I remember I tried. Me and my friend was like, it was nonstop stage diving. it was like people just got on one side, ran across, jumped off, and it would just never stop the whole time they were playing. So we're like, hey, yeah, let's do that, you know? And we got up to like the 6th row and we were just being bombarded by bodies just hitting us nonstop. So we're like, fuck this. It wasn't worth it. You couldn't enjoy the show. There's people kicking you in the head and stuff. So we went up back to the seats, and I ended up sitting right down next to Peter Steele and the guitar player for Carnivore at the time, which was pretty cool. But yeah, that was one of the most memorable shows I've ever seen. And I'm wearing when they played their final show at the Garden. I seen them twice on the final tour. But I seen them, I think, 23 times altogether, and one of the greatest live bands of all time.
Oh yeah.
I remember I was living in Long Island at the time, and remember getting off of Long Island Railroad and walking upstairs from Penn Station to outside the Garden, and there were like hundreds of cops everywhere, and you were like, okay, damn it. Literally left you with like a really uneasy feeling of how the whole evening was going to kind of play out, and it's exactly how the show was. It was
watching
great.
the DVD today. It's great watching like Tom Moret's like begging the crowd to stop throwing shit. Then he put all the lights on, so he goes, I need the lights on so I can see what's going to hit me, you know. And people just kept cutting the seats up. They caused so much damage. They weren't supposed to ever play the Garden ever again.
Nope.
They were banned like Judas Priest was, and then it's pretty funny how their final show ever is a sold out show at the Garden, you know.
They played the Garden 3 years later in '91. Clash of the Titans tour played the Garden. So it's ironic that Slayer was banned, but that band only lasted 3 years. But yet Judas Priest has been banned since 1984, and they've actively been trying to play the Garden again, and the Garden to this day won't let them in.
It's like, nope.
Wow.
It's
These better lawyers.
Yeah. All right. Let's circle back around to Butch. Why don't we, we've spent a lot of time already, so why don't we pick two of your last 2 picks with each go around here. So Butch, what are your next 2 choices here?
October 10th, 2003, Thin Lizzy at the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York. It was the first time, well, I never thought I'd ever get a chance to see Lizzy, first of all, because obviously they were defunct in 1983. Sykes was back in the band, leading the band, him and Gorham. The thing that's funny about that one is that they were playing at the Chance. It was a Friday night, and my friend Frank Pallett that owned the Chance, Mr. Frank, God rest your soul. I'm still pissed off about this though. He forgot to tell me when I got there on Friday night. He got to the bar. He tells me he didn't want to talk to me. He couldn't actually make eye contact with me, because what he wanted to tell me was that Thin Lizzy had been at the club all week long rehearsing. And he forgot that I was a Lizzy guy and John Sykes guy. He forgot all about it. And as soon as he saw me, he's like, oh shit, you're going to be so pissed off at me. So that was awesome to see Lizzy in any kind of form. No, it's not the same as with Phil, of course, but again, you didn't think you'd ever get a chance to see it. And for someone I was late to the party in '83 when I really started getting into him, it meant a lot to me. And I saw him several times after that, but definitely different people in the band besides him and Gorham and Sykes and Gorham, but that first time was the best. But then the big one was November 13th, 1982, Nassau Coliseum, Van Halen. I had waited since 1979 when my mom bought me Van Halen 2 to see them. Back in the days when Ticketron used to be in Sears, my mom would leave IBM at lunchtime to go, or before lunchtime when tickets went on sale at 10 o'clock. She would bail out early when I was at school to go try to get me tickets for Van Halen on Women and Children First. Got home from school, ran up the stairs, called my mom. Did you get them? It was sold out when I got there. Next year, fair warning. Mom, did you get the tickets? Sold out again. The next year, Diver Down, I got them.
Right.
So I had waited all that time and they did not disappoint. I remember pretty much everything about that show like it was yesterday. Lights go down. They start with Romeo the Light. Eddie turns around and looks at the cabinets and just runs full steam at the cabinets, jumps up, kicks the cabinets. His cabinets wobble back and forth. I'm like, this is the fucking greatest show I've ever seen in my fucking life. And that was 82, so I was 15. I had already been by that time, I'd probably been to 20 shows. I started going to shows when I was 10. So I had seen a lot of really cool stuff before that to kind of judge it against. But to see Eddie, because he's my guy. You know, he's the god of all gods. Even though I always say Sykes is my favorite guitar player, and he is, but Edward is, you know, he's a legend. He's the guy that's changed everything for me. So he's in a whole nother class by itself. But to be able to see Van Halen for that first time, and I saw them a bunch of times with Hagar. Do I really need to say anything about that? I saw Eddie with short hair and big, huge parachute pants that pissed me to fuck off playing a Steinberger. So there was nothing after 1982 that was even remotely close, except for maybe the last tour in 15, where they were kind of full circle back to playing all the old stuff again, and Roth was back, and I saw him in 2007 too, and that was cool too. But 82 was it. So seeing Van Halen in 82 for the first time and seeing Thin Lizzy with Sykes, fronting the band in 2003 were just completely tremendous. So easy picks.
How would you rank that Lizzy show at the Chance with the show that you and I saw at in New York City with Viv?
The Sykes one was better, I think. I'll say this though, Viv was awesome because Viv did his best Brian Robertson. He played Brian Robertson stuff note for note. He was channeling being that kid in Ireland, loving Lizzy. So it was, I think, a little bit more traditional. The problem and I did a thing with Steve a couple of years ago with Ricky Warwick. Ricky Warwick is a lovely, lovely man. I do not like his voice and I don't like him singing Lizzy. And it's no. So with Sykes singing it was much better. It was much better. So yeah, no comparison.
Did you get to see them when they opened up for Deep Purple at the theater?
I most certainly did.
Yeah, it was a great show.
And Sykes walked off. I was on the side of the stage because my friend Sean, hey Sean, was Ian Pace's drum tech. So I was on the side of the stage watching because he knew obviously how I feel about Sykes, and I knew him a bit. Sykes came off, and I'm standing there, I'm like waiting, like Sykes, and he like looked at me and just kind of like, and then walked away. Like he looked at me like he was mad at me for some reason. I'm like, oh my God, what did he really just look at me and just walk away like that? And unfortunately, that was the last time I've seen him. That was, what year was that, Pete? Like 2006?
I think 6 or 7, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It was Perpendicular Tour, so it had to be 2006, I think.
But that was still cool though.
Well, no passing the oil that night, I guess, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Cool.
I wasn't going to say it.
No, it's out there.
For those of you who wonder what the hell we're talking about, watch the old episode. Bryce.
Yeah, so real quick, Butch, that reminds me, the other night, when Blackie Lawless was coming out, I stayed after till like 1 a.m. He comes up, he sees me. I'm like, Blackie, you rule, great show. He just looks at me a little bit, kind of nods, just keeps walking right by onto the bus. I'm like, all right. But it's
Bryce, when we're done, I'll tell you, I'll give you my Blackie story when we're done. I won't put that out over the airwaves.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. But yeah, he signed my shirt afterwards. I mean, that was pretty cool. But so in early 2016,
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, how much did you pay for Blackie to sign your shirt?
I was gonna say
$0. He signed 30. There was like 30 people that waited after till like 1 a.m. and he signed one thing for everybody that waited. So
that's cool. I give him that.
It's a free autograph, but first you had to buy a ticket to see the lip sync. So
hey,
one of the 6 of one, half dozen of another.
Hey, he sang a good chunk
behind
of
that
it.
big microphone stand. I mean, did you even see his face?
Hey, he really sang like a good chunk of it too, but he did lip sync
A
some.
good chunk of it.
Bryce, you
I
keep
swear.
thinking that.
I swear to God, I got footage of it. But okay.
The goat sings a good chunk of it.
He is the goat.
All right, he's a goat, but okay. So
okay.
I'm talking about Megadeth here. They are my favorite band, 100%. Always have been since I got into metal in like 2005. So early 2016, I was going to University of West Georgia, and I skipped class one day and went to this store at Arbor Place Mall near Atlanta. Called FYE, a music store, looking for some CDs or vinyl. And I saw a poster in there. I had no idea that Megadeth was going to be in the store for a signing like a week or two later. I'm like, what the hell? I guess skipping class sometimes can pay off. But so I went to the signing. It was the same day as the show in Atlanta at the Tabernacle, my first time seeing him. So I went to the autograph signing. It was free as long as you had bought Dystopia, which was cool. So I briefly got to meet Dave Mustaine and the rest of the band, which at the time it was Chris Adler doing the drums from Lamb of God, David Ellefson, and bass was David Ellefson. Chris Adler and Kiko Loureiro had like just joined the band pretty soon before that. It was a great show. Went with my dad and my brother. We were there early, so I got right against the front rail. Opens up with the Prince of Darkness from Risk, just like the little track of that, and then it breaks into Hangar 18. They run onto the stage, a lot of energy. Dave sounded really good that night. Kiko, of course, was amazing. Chris was great on the drums, and Dave Ellefson was good on bass too. But overall, that was a really amazing show. Got to see it from the front row. My favorite song, Holy Wars. Got to see him shred that solo, which is just absolutely mesmerizing and amazing to see. But and then I went to see him earlier this year, not with Five Finger Death Punch, but I was pretty much just like boycotting that show. I didn't want to give that any money. So I drove up to Nashville by myself a couple months ago. It's like a 4-hour drive for me. I just went up. I was off that day. I was like, why not? Went to see him with Lamb of God, In Flames, and Trivium, who In Flames and Trivium are a snooze fest. Not a fan. Lamb of God was pretty good. And then Megadeth, they sounded really good that night too. But the first time, again, is the most special and the best one for me. And right here on the spot, I'm going to change one of my answers actually to Death Angel as my last choice. They're my favorite, even though Megadeth's my favorite band of all time. Like currently my favorite band, like my favorite thrash band to see live is Death Angel. I think they just are so tight, so great live. Everybody in the band sounds absolutely perfect. Rob Cavastani on guitar is one of the most underrated players in all of thrash. So I saw them for the first time in 2016 as well, opening for Slayer. They didn't play too long that night. I was disappointed because they were probably my favorite band of the night. Love Slayer too. Anthrax was all right, but they played about 5-6 songs, and then I've seen them a couple times since. And the most recent time was also in Nashville, and that was actually with my mom. A couple of months ago, we drove up. It was her first ever thrash show. I talked her into going. We got right against the front rail. Rob was literally like 3 feet in front of us, like freaking just putting down amazing riffs. Mark on the vocal still sounds perfect, but that is my favorite time seeing Death Angel, which was the 3rd overall time. So the most recent one with my mom, really cool experience to go up there and see it. And she really enjoyed it, actually. She thought Death Angel was the best band of the night as well, which they opened for Exodus and Testament. So she liked Death Angel the best, and so did I. And yeah, that was my favorite time seeing them.
You know, you think, what, dude? You took your mom, and then you realize she's probably younger than me.
Maybe. She's mid-50s. So
Okay.
Is she
about the
cute?
same age.
is she what?
Never mind.
Is she a MILF? He asked if your mom's
I
a
said,
Well,
is
you
she
see,
cute? I
you
just
see,
had to
so
ask.
you see,
I don't know.
y'all see how good I look. So I
Listen,
think y'all
Bryce
can
is a good-looking
probably,
kid.
y'all can
Every time
imagine.
he clicks in with that picture with his hair all poofy and his glasses,
Yeah.
that's a good-looking fella right there.
So not only did your parents take you to go see these cool metal shows, but your mom went right up to the
Right?
stage. with you.
Yeah, I got her up there. She really liked it. Yeah, she had seen.
When
It's
I
like,
was a kid, my father would drop me off, be like, "See ya," and I don't even know.
Yeah, mine too.
Hey,
See
I
you in
had to-
3 hours, dude. That's
I had
it.
to convince her to get up there with me, and that she had seen some shows back in the '80s, but it was more of like she went with my dad in like '86 to see David Lee Roth and Cinderella, so she'd seen some like hard rock shows and stuff, but that was her first thrash show, and she said she liked it. So
Very
yeah.
cool. Very cool. All right, Ryan.
All right, well, now I gotta follow up with 2 things here. So my mom took me to a bunch of shows, but she was kind of same thing, dropped us off. But one time she took us, me and a friend, to see the black metal band Satyricon at this shithole club in Randolph, New Jersey called Obsessions. Yeah, I fucking hated that place. But this is when Satyricon still had corpse paint and spikes, and you know, back in I think '99 they were touring, and this place went late as fucking fuck. So I'm like, the show will be over by midnight, and it's like 1:30 and they're still playing. So she comes in to like get me. It was me, my friend, and his sister. Like, all right, we gotta fucking go, because it's like, well, come on, we gotta fucking go. She comes in, this crazy band's up there just blasting, and she basically had security kind of find us and make us leave because I was pretty young. So whatever, you know. But yeah, and actually I did see, speaking of Megadeth real quick, I saw them a bunch of times, but maybe about 10 years ago, my friends, like, they're playing a secret club at St. Vitus in Brooklyn under the name Vic and the Rattleheads, but it's only open to fan club members. So I said, well, I'm not in the fan club. Are you? And he said, no. So I'm like, well, fuck it. That's that. Then an hour later, he messages me. He's like, my wife is in the fan club. Okay. He's like, she got tickets in her, the fan club email. He's like, you want to go? I'm like, yeah, fuck it. So we went down to St. Vitus, which holds like 200 people, about 250. And we saw Megadeth. And you know what? It was fucking awesome.
Oh,
They only played like 45 minutes. It was like a little short set. There were no openers. So it was a real short concert, but
That's awesome.
yeah, it was cool as shit. That's definitely the best time I've seen Megadeth. I got right up front. They opened with Rattlehead, and it was fucking cool. So Nick just texted me. Nick's at work right now, the poor bastard. He just texted me his picks. I'm going to read his off real quick.
ain't that cute?
Bear with me here, poor Nicholas. So he said, Ryan, if it's not too much trouble, mention something like this. I want to mention something like this, Nick. So I talked to him beforehand about Iron Maiden, because obviously they're one of our favorite bands, but we beat up Iron Maiden a lot on this show. So I didn't want to mention them just to mix it up a little bit. But Nick mentioned them. So like myself, and he's probably the only person in this group with me, the first time we saw Iron Maiden was with Blaze Bayley. That's just how it worked out. Just how it worked out because of our age.
Wow.
When you're old enough to see a concert, you can't really control when your parents fuck and when you're born. That's how it happens. That's how it happens. So he basically, and he's my opinion too, we saw him and it was, they played smaller clubs. It was a different vibe. But much like myself, he agrees that now that they're back to full power, big places, full stage set, Bruce is back, Adrian's back, Yannick's still there. Sorry, Butch. It's just better now. It's just, they slogged through those bad years. They did what they had to do. So then the next one was Primordial. So the first time he saw Primordial was in Wacken in Germany in 2002. And he wanted me to specially mention that Alan had long hair. He no longer does. Now this past weekend, after Thanksgiving, we drove up, Nick and myself and some other friends, we drove up to Montreal to this black metal festival. And the main band we wanted to see and the headliner of the second day was Primordial. So we get there and we got on our Airbnb and shit. And unfortunately, I won't go into any details, but Nick had some heavy shit go down at his job. So he was kind of, it's like, all right, I kind of need this, some catharsis. So he's like, let's get stupid. I'm like, you know what, Nick? Fuck it, let's get stupid. So we got really, really fucking stupid. Really.
Doesn't take him much.
Oh my God. No, we got, I know you've seen us
halfway
stupid.
there.
This was beyond however much stupid you've seen us. This was like 10,000 megatons of stupid.
I've seen Nick pretty stupid. So
this was even stupider. We got really stupid. I don't want to go into details, because it's a public forum, but Primordial were great. I've seen them 6 times. He's seen them 6 times too in different capacity. They played St. Vitus. They played Pagan Fest, Maryland Death Fest. He's seen them in Europe once or twice. Both of us agree this was the best. It was just something special. They sounded great. I think we were really obnoxious to everybody around us, just smashing people and just be, it was ridiculous, but they were really awesome. And
I have one of their albums.
I do not.
You know what? I'd recommend this band to everybody because they're not, it's not really, they don't really sound like anybody. They're kind of their own little thing. Clean vocals, no screamy vocals. I can't even tell you what kind of metal it is because it's just kind of
Exile Amongst the Ruins. Where's that?
That's a more recent album, but
Is it good? The one I got?
oh yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think everything they've done is good. The earliest stuff is a little more black metal, but in the early 2000s they kind of changed, and now
kind of
maybe it's
epic,
like,
I like it.
emotional, kind of doomy, but not.
yeah, a little like Catatonia, kind of, but not really. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
Opeth, but not really.
Long songs.
Yeah, they can get up to like 6, 7, 8 minutes, but they don't drag. I love them, and they're a great band. And this guy Alan, he's a front man like no other. He is captivating on like that Bruce Dickinson level, where he just commands the room, gets right up on you. That almost like seeing Twisted Sister too, with like Dee Snider, like the way he's just gets up in the audience and commands them, which is hard to do. Not a lot of guys can pull it off, and this guy does it. And then the third time is one of his favorite bands when he saw Morphus. So he's close friends with those guys, and I know he's close friends with the current singer, and not the original singer, Passy. So I'm going to mention those. So for my 2 second and third choices, now that Nicholas has added away, I went with Voivod, who I love. So much like Karen's situation with Sabbath at Ozfest, I went to Ozfest in 2003 in Homedale, New Jersey. It was 8 billion degrees, because it always was. It was August 18th, 2003. And that lineup that year, I had to look it up because I didn't remember. It was just terrible. It was just nothing I gave a fuck about. The only band I really wanted to see was Voivod. It was the only time I saw them with their original singer, Piggy, who's my favorite guitar player ever, because he passed away from cancer a while after that. They had Jason Newsted at the time, whose talents were really utilized in this band, unlike Metallica. And they were great. They had out the new album that came out at the time was self-titled. It was a little more like a rock and roll vibe, a little less like prog metal, less thrash, but I thought they were good. I saw them earlier this year in Philadelphia with Candlemass, and they were awesome. But the best time I ever saw Voivod was September 2017. My friend Anik booked a little music festival a couple years, just intimate, probably at a venue about half the size of the Chance, real intimate little place. And the last band to play on the last day of her fourth and final festival, because it was a Montreal festival, it was a hometown band, it was Voivod. So they, she's friends with those guys. So they came in and they played a special set, and it was just fucking electrifying. It was so good. I mean, I've seen them a lot of times with all different lineups. I've seen every original member, but I've never seen all four of the original guys playing together. Because when I first saw them in 2003 with Piggy, Blackie wasn't in the band. Then Piggy unfortunately passed away. Then Blackie came back. I saw him with Blackie a couple of times on bass. Then he left again. And now they have a new guitarist and a new bassist who are awesome. They're still great, but it's been not all four together at once. So that was that September 2017 was very fucking special. I didn't get any good pictures because I'm right up front against the stage, just smashing the stage, just being fucking obnoxious. So I got one picture of the singer Snake, and it's like from a foot away from his face. So all you see is like half his face and his mouth's open. That's like the best picture I got because I was too close to get like any good shots. And the last one is one of my favorite bands to see live. I mentioned them sometimes. Was Destroyer 666. I saw him in 2002 at Connections, which is either in Clifton or Passaic. I forget where in Jersey. It's been closed for fucking years. It was just some little shithole biker bar, but they played a festival there. It was one of those deals where they went on at like 2 a.m. or some shit because it was just kind of like that's just how it worked out. It was great. Then I saw them probably about 16 times since then, all over Europe and around the States. And the most recent time, which I think is probably the best, was in October 29, 2019. I saw them at the Underworld in London, England with Nocturnal Graves, and it was fucking awesome. And this band is kind of a deal. It's kind of similar to Megadeth, where it's a whole different band now from like 2002 up until present day, and it's been changed a couple times. But the main guy in the band is almost like a Dave Mustaine, where he's the main songwriter, he's the vocalist, and the guitarist. So even though everybody kind of switches around them, you still have that continuity, So it still sounds like the same band. It's not like a whole different thing because the vocals is the same, the guitar player is the same. So it's like, I think I've said this on the show before. I wasn't around in 85 to see Slayer then, but this band gives me that kind of energy of seeing Slayer in 85, which is absolute 10 billion% intensity, crowds going fucking wild, bodies piling on top of you, spikes, leather, chains, just the whole gamut, total violence, no slow shit, no ballads, no real talking to the audience. Then the only band I've seen live that gives me the same, obviously I didn't see Slayer then, but watching videos is the only band I've seen that kind of gives me that feeling. So I'd say they're better live now than ever. So can't wait to see them again. So that's my 3.
I don't miss those days of headliners going on at 1 and 2 in the morning, man.
Oh,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It still happens. It just depends. If you go to like, I know the joke's always it's punk rock time. You're at punk rock time. The first band goes on at 9:45 and the headliner goes on at 1. Yeah, I hope you don't have to fucking work the next day. I hate it, but it definitely still happens.
I was friends with the promoter at Obsessions in Randolph, so I used to go all the time. But man, the shows there were really fucking late.
Oh yeah,
because they were trying. Nobody ever went, so the owner was trying to get drink money.
Yep,
so
I remember that.
The longer you fucking stayed, but I've seen a ton of shows there.
What he did, which I thought was real bullshit, was like the one band would finish and it would make the next band wait like 50 minutes before they even started. Just kind of like stretch out that, like, come on, just fucking play the show. You're just killing time. We get the same 3 stupid Pantera songs looping on the PA over and over again. But the latest I ever saw was, it's actually in the Chinese basement that Steve loves to joke about when I saw shows in Brooklyn. This band came up from Colombia called Witch Trap. It's kind of like an old school three. It's like old Creator, old Creator, old Scion, but they're, obviously they're South American bands, lots of crazy, satanic Hispanics come out. Great show. I left this for some reason, even though they're cool, they like to play these long fucking sets, whatever. I left the show at 3:45 and they were still playing.
Wow.
I'm like, I gotta go to fucking bed. Like I was off the next day. Like I still gotta go to bed. I got home and the sun was coming up. Like,
Yeah.
man, what the fuck? Apparently they went on to like after 4. So, bless their hearts. But that's way too late for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no thanks. No thanks.
No reason for
Would
that.
drive home from Lemore's, and I would go home, change my clothes, and then go to work.
Go to work. Yeah.
Nope.
Right.
I didn't sleep. Who needed sleep when you're
No,
that
I
young?
do. Yeah, I need a lot of sleep. Yeah, I don't do that. Maybe when you're like 20, you can do that, or 21.
Oh yeah, that's.
Once you hit like 30, it's like, nah, I need to fucking
Yeah.
sleep or fuck off.
I know. Mhm.
Karen, what do you got?
This is really hard because a lot of my favorite bands, I haven't seen that often, or they aren't active, or so I'm just going to reach back to bands I saw a lot that I liked a lot, and I love to see live. So, and they left an impression on me and kind of steered me in a certain direction. So my first band I'm going to talk about like that is Guitar Wolf. Guitar Wolf is a Japanese trio. They are raunchy, dirty, weird rock and roll for real. And they are very dramatic. They are dressed in leather, head to toe, leather jacket, leather pants, combing their hair like they're Fonzie pompadours, got their back to the audience, and it's a production. And I, coming from heavy metal and hardcore and some punk, but like exploited punk, like Uniform kind of crap, I'd never seen anything like this before, and it impressed me, and the energy in the room, and just how much fun everybody was into it, and the lightheartedness of it all, but it's still the intensity. That blew me away. And every time they would come back about once a year, all through the 90s. And they just kept getting better and better. So there was the first time I guess was the best for me, because again, I had never seen anything like that. So I loved it. And I was fortunate enough to see them in Southern California, which really appreciated that kind of music. I mean, I would see them in New York when I moved back, but it was a little different, the attitude towards it. And yeah, by that time it got to be a little old, believe it or not. Like, it was still great, but I've seen this before, I get a little jaded. Then I'm going to go in line with a band I brought up my first appearance, and that was the Mummies. And I love the Mummies. I've said it before. And live, I'm coming from that heavy metal place where, jeans, t-shirt, that's it, stripped down, blah, blah, blah. These guys were dressed up as mummies, dirty freaking mummies. They look like dirty toilet paper all over them. And I never saw a keyboard player as active in my whole life. Like, that organ was right up front, and this guy had his leg on top of it, and he was dragging it all around, and he was singing at the same time. And they were just like, they didn't give a fuck at all. I mean, it was great. They were just there playing music and being stupid. And that's right up my alley. I'm stupid and I love music, and I was so there for that. And they just keep getting better and better. And, they're older and they've slowed down quite a bit, but I'm still there for them. And yeah, it opened up my eyes and made me look a whole new world. The Mummies so the first time the impression was like, whoa, same thing with Guitar Wolf, but they lived up to it. And just, I can't say I ever saw a bad show from either one of those bands. My first time is the best time.
First time is the best. All right, Jamie.
Well, I'm going to talk about Maiden. I should add about Soundgarden. I bought tickets to see him a third time, and Chris Cornell 2 days before my show at Rock and Range. And then Rock and Range turned into a Chris Cornell tribute show. Basically, everyone was doing Soundgarden shows. But I woke up that morning I'm going to see them the next day. And how you grab your phone, and my wife heard me from upstairs because she found out before me. And yeah, I was not, that was awful. Anyways, so Maiden, I switched high schools back in 87. And a bunch of the guys I met at my new high school were going to see Maiden on the Seven Sun tour in 88. And I really wasn't in on the clique totally yet. So I was like, they had their tickets. If I would have known them better, I probably would have went. So I didn't see Maiden. Because then after that, I went to college like you, Pete, and you stopped going to as many shows. And then Bruce leaves the band, and, then they're coming with Blaze Bayley to a club. And I'm like, no, that's all right. And then Bruce gets back, and I finally see him for the first time in 2003 on the Give 'em Ed Till I'm Dead tour. There's my t-shirt I got at the show. And this is the first metal show I brought my wife. We went to a rock show earlier. I think our first show Counting Crows or something, but this was the first metal show. This was with Dio, Motorhead, and Iron Maiden, and I got third row. So I was a little worried for her. How is she this little Kenyan girl, how is she going to handle this metal show? So we went, and she knew a few, she didn't know Motorhead at all, but she knew a few Dio show songs, and it was daylight, and we were having fun. And then Maiden comes on, and, the sun is down pretty much. And the first song is Number the Beast, and they got the 666 flash, and Bruce is coming, jumping over the amp right at you. And I kept looking at her. How is she handling it? Me, I had tears coming out my eyes. I was so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And then Nico throws a drumstick. I'm looking at Grace to make sure she's all right, and it bounces off my chest. And there were like 9 Asian guys in the row in front of me, and they all dove onto that drumstick. And I was like, have at it, boys. But if I was paying attention, just maybe something, I could have caught that stick. So I saw Maiden quite a few times after that. I saw them in 2005 with all that drama on Ozfest, where I can't remember the details, but Ozzy stopped playing and Maiden had to be the headliner.
No.
Something. What was the story?
I was there. It was in California. Sharon Osbourne
That's
had
the eggs or something.
That was the eggs,
Sharon had Iron Maiden get egged during their set.
Okay. Because when they came to Columbus,
at Ozzy.
it was ending short, and Maiden was the headliner, and the show was over by 8:00. So
I don't know. The California, the Ozfest 2005 was headlined by Sabbath. Maiden was direct support, but it was like a 4-week tour. Maiden only did 3 weeks. The last week, Maiden had to leave to go back to England, and Velvet Revolver took the Maiden slot for like the last 7 days.
Okay.
So
yeah,
Sharon
I
had
remember
Maiden
that.
egged in California on the last night of the Maiden portion of the tour, which I was at front row in California, courtesy of Roadrunner Records. So yeah, that's how that
For
went.
some reason, we didn't get Sabbath, and Maiden ended it, and it was over with the sun. We were leaving with the sun still up. It was so weird.
Okay.
And that was a disappointment. Then I saw him on the what the hell's the name of the album? The Tank.
Matter of Life and Death.
Matter of Life and Death, where they did the whole album front to back, and then maybe like the encore was 3 songs. So many people were pissed off. I was kind of enjoying it, and I knew they were doing that going in, but most people didn't. Then I went to go see him at Riverbend in Cincinnati. The worst venue of all time, because the stage, I bought tickets kind of close, but to the side a little bit. I sat on the side at amphitheaters. You've been to one amphitheater, you've been to them all. But the stage was like a hallway. You could not see the drummer unless you were right in front of the stage. Anyone on the left or right could not see the drummer or any of the, or anything. So I'm sitting here going, I joined the fan club just to get good tickets. I paid all that money. I paid the money for, and I can't see shit. 1/3 of the people in this audience can see the stage. 2/3 cannot. So what I did is I walked on the sidewalk that separates the pavilion and the grass, and I just kept going back and forth, just so I could see, until security told me to stop doing that nonsense. So when I saw them just this last October, they pretty much had this show, which was really cool. I missed most of it anyway, so I got to see it in October. And my number one is, of course, Pat Benatar. My first date with Pat Benatar, I was 15 years old. And she could have taken advantage of me. I promise I would
Pretty
not.
good for a 15-year-old.
Not bad.
Yeah, I
It would have been
know,
our
right?
secret.
Jamie
So-
got game.
Believe it or not, she was headlining arenas on the
What
Seven the
year
Hard
was
Way
this?
tour.
What
What's that?
year?
This would be 1985.
I was long done with her by then.
Oh,
Dumped
how
her.
dare you? Neil Giraldo wasn't playing those leads,
He
and
sure wasn't. I was
like
out.
you wanted. Yeah. It ended at Tropico with you. Maybe
No,
I love the
it
battle.
ended it ended at precious time.
Precious times.
Oh my goodness. So I'm in the arena in the cheap seats, way up high. The alarm opened up, which is kind of like a U2 wannabe band. And I was just in awe of being there. You know, I'm 15 years old. We got dropped off, me and two buddies from high school. I brought my little cassette player to tape the concert. You know, it was in my jacket. And then I got home and I'm listening to the show on my cassette player. So I was in awe. I got the t-shirt. I wish I still had that baseball jersey. But I have seen her so many times since. And I'm always in the front row. Somehow, I may not buy front row tickets, but I get there. We saw her in Vegas around 2014, maybe. And of course, when you're in Vegas, you're drinking all day. And we went to the show. And before it started at the Hard Rock Casino there, I was talking to these two ushers. You know, and I'm wasted. They're dealing with the drunk guy. Oh, you're gonna love it. You know, they're young. They don't know Pat Benatar from Pat.
Boom.
Boone.
Boone. You're gonna talk to your office, and I don't know what I am. I'm probably in row X or something. And she comes on a few songs in. I'm like, I told my wife, you stay here. I'm going to front row. Well, I have my Penguins hat on. I'm up there, and the two ushers who I talked the ear off, there's that drunk. They come walking up to me, tap me on the shoulder. You got to go back to your seat, buddy. I'm like, all right. So I go back to my seat, and I'm sitting there, and I go to my wife. I say, you know what? Those two guys know the drunk in the Penguins hat. They don't know the bald guy. And I go up there without a hat on. Nobody bothered me. They did not recognize me. And I shook her hand from the stage. I touched her sweaty hand. I touched her DNA.
I hope you never wash that hand again.
No, it is not. She had the softest DNA I've ever felt in my life. And then I just saw her this past summer in Cincinnati at the casino there, and I made my way to the front row again. And now she's touring with Pink and some other chick. Carly, what's her name? Brandy Carlisle. Yeah. And it would be fun just to go and drink beer and
Brandy Carlisle.
Brandy Carlisle, yes. And I would love to see her play to that many people. But man, I'm always in the front row. Now to be a half mile away. That's why I didn't go see her open up for Journey either. I'm like, I'm not going to sit like the first time I saw her far, far away. I can't do it. And see her do like a 45-minute set before Journey. No, I'm all right. You know what, though? She was doing a meet and greet. And a voice in my head said, don't pay all that money just to meet another human being. I should have just done it. Because I have about a dream once a year and out with her since I was 12 years old. I'm 53 and I still have those fucking dreams. So I should have just
Listen to
done it.
me. You make yourself happy. You're 50 freaking 3 years old. You work for this. If you want to do it, do it. It's all about making yourself happy. Pay that extra money, get those tickets, and have a great
I'll
time.
do it again if she ever offers
If you
it.
can do it, do it.
But paying $150, $200 for 35 seconds, is it really worth it?
I know.
I
And
would
that's
never
when you
do
weigh
it.
it out. But
Like
if that's
two
what you
angels on the
want,
shoulder, the angel and the devil here.
Yeah.
Do it.
So you can say that you actually met her truly, and then you got pushed out of the way.
You got the picture forever. I talked to her on Rockline when I was 15. I called in the Rockline and talked to her, and I was on the phone. I let it ring 6 o'clock in the evening till they answered it at 10 o'clock at night. I was like,
Wow.
nobody uses the phone
Yeah.
tonight.
Wow.
I'm not even commenting on that one. Wow.
Yes, that was post precious time too.
There you go.
Yeah, that even says even more.
I'm all in, man. I'm all in. for
Apparently.
the album.
He's all in. All right.
Way to be.
Chris.
Okay, let's go. I gotta go. This one is different than everybody else's story. Ralph and Pete already mentioned this. August 31st, 1988, Slayer played the Felt Forum. I was there like you guys. And there was a band opening up called Danzig. And I didn't give a fuck about Danzig. I was not a Danzig fan. The Misfits, nobody really knew the Misfits back then other than the 2 songs covered by Metallica. So that was my first date with Danzig. I was kind of indifferent. I was like, I don't give a fuck. I just want to see Slayer. But then after that gig, a couple weeks later, a friend of mine who worked at a local record store had a promo of Danzig 1, didn't like it because it didn't sound like the Misfits. Gave it to me and I was completely fucking blown away. Then I seen him again on the Danzig 1 tour and got super into his other bands, Misfits and Sam Hain, traveled around to see him. My last time seeing Glenn Danzig was my 41st time seeing him in concert. I was with the Misfits, December 14th, 2019. And it was really great because I got really good seats at the last minute. And they were pretty cheap, unlike all the other Misfit shows. And that was super cool. And my last one was one that was definitely the bane of my existence as a fucking teenager. I wanted 3 things, Pete. I wanted to see either the AWA, NWA, or WWF world title change hands. I wanted to lose my virginity. And I wanted to see Black Sabbath in concert. And it kills me that seeing Black Sabbath in concert was the fucking toughest one. But I finally got my wish on May 31st, 1989, when Sabbath played close to home on the Headless Cross Tour at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center. What was different from that, from all the other shows, is nobody gave a fuck about Black Sabbath in 1989. Nobody gave a fuck about Cozy Powell or Tony Iommi in 1989. You couldn't
That's
give
not
the fuck.
true.
Butch, were you there at the Civic Center?
No, I met Cozy the day before. That was
You
even
didn't.
better.
But wait. But you didn't. You were a big enough fan.
I
to meet
didn't
him?
even know. To be
But
honest
you-
with you, I'll be completely honest with you. You're
Well,
right.
then there you go.
I was not a fan. I didn't like Sabbath, that version of Sabbath, but I didn't even know they were playing.
Okay. Well, there you
But
go.
Kind of goes with your point.
Nobody knew. Nobody went.
cared. I'm pretty sure Steve Keeler was there with me, but that was the huge difference between seeing Sabbath then and later on. I seen Sabbath in the UK and Holland and Canada and Belgium, but I think one of my favorite ones was I saw Sabbath 41 times. One of my favorites was 39 because when they announced the End Tour, I was like, you know what? Sabbath fucked me in 99 because I had to fly to England twice to see them do their farewell tours.
Oh,
I'm sorry, their last ever shows in 99, which they fucked me the first time because they postponed it 4 months. And then I went again in 99. I had to fly all the way to England a second time to see their last ever shows. And then Sabbath reunited 6 months later. So I was like, all right, fuck you guys. I'm going to go to the first night of the tour and hopefully that'll be good. And it worked out great because, yeah, I seen them at the Garden and I seen them at Mohegan Sun, but I got front row tickets to see them January 20th, 2016 in Omaha, Nebraska.
whoa.
And it was
Nebraska.
fucking ridiculous because I got seats in the 100s for Sabbath, cost me like $250, but
Wow.
front row is center at fucking Omaha, Nebraska through Ticketmaster was $150.
Oh my God.
Now front row tickets for Madison Square Garden was $5,000. So it totally made sense to fucking fly to Omaha. Me and my buddy flew out. My buddy Sean, we flew out there. We had a fucking great time. Anytime we talked to anybody, they were like, "Wait, you came from New York to Omaha?"
Yeah, for $100 versus like a car.
Hell
like a
yeah.
fucking
Oh, it was
used
nuts.
car.
It was fucking ridiculous. The parking, when I parked at Madison Square Garden to see Sabbath, A couple months later, that was probably $50.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great. It was a great show. And what was awesome was I had never seen Sabbath play Tomorrow's Dream because they'd only done it in onesie twosies here and there. And they did Tomorrow's Dream on the very first night of the tour in 2016, and then they dropped it. They never fucking played it
Yeah.
again.
Saving it for those Nebraska folks. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that worked out for me.
about them.
Special
I had my camera. I think I took 1,000 pictures, maybe more. So yeah, that was super cool. And I had never, of all the shows I went, I never had any really good pictures of Ozzy. So it was cool. I got a lot of really good shots of Ozzy along.
And he sounded good that night because he.
Of course. Well, he sounded great
I
because
thought he sounded
he
good.
wasn't on the road for whatever it was, a year. So he had plenty of time to rest.
Yep.
But yeah, that was super cool.
That's great, Chris.
I'm sure Butch will agree. I would have loved to have seen Sabbath with Cozy on drums.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him. Let me see. 1, 2.
That was 99 in Poughkeepsie, right?
89.
89.
I saw him twice in 89, and then Cozy I saw him 3 times in 95. So
Yeah,
I
was living in Long Island at the time, so I would have gone to the.
Gotcha. Yeah, Cozy did not do the 94 tour. That was Bobby Rondinelli.
Yeah.
Hey, yo, Bobby Rondinelli on the drums over there. Hey.
That's right.
I'm playing drums with Black Sabbath. Hey, yo.
Next week I'm with Blue Oyster Cult, and after
True.
hey,
Hey,
getting back with Rainbow, and I'm playing with everybody.
And Bobby gets around. Don't give him any grief.
hey, Bobby gets around. Hey.
All right, let me blast through mine here. So Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers tour, Brendan Byrne Arena, March 9th, 1985.
I was there.
You were there with Girls School.
Great
opening up?
show.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was my first time seeing Purple, and I remember I was going to SUNY New Paltz at the time, and I remember a whole bunch of us packed in the car. Jack Toledano, as a matter of fact, he drove, and I remember sitting in the back seat, got pretty wrecked on the way down there, but had a really good time. It was a great show. Probably the best show I ever saw with Purple, just because it was like the comeback tour. It was Richie and Ian and the whole classic Mark II era of the band. I saw them a ton afterwards. I saw them with Joelyn Turner at Radio City Music Hall. I saw them a lot with Steve Morse. So I've seen Purple quite a bit. I still think that was probably the most notable show, but I think that November 27, 1996 show at the Beacon Theater was also really, really good. That was the Perpendicular Tour, which I think that was one of the shows with Thin Lizzy, if I remember correctly. That was really, really good.
Really? Okay.
Last, Whitesnake. So huge fan of Whitesnake, as everybody knows. I saw them on the 87 tour, opening for Motley Crue at Nassau Coliseum in Long Island. I thought they blew Motley Crue off the face of the earth that night. That, of course, was the tour with, Viv and Adrian Vandenberg and Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge. Great live band. They never recorded anything together, but that was really, really great. In fact, I left halfway through Motley Crue's set. It was just no comparison that night. But I saw them a couple other times where I had a great time out. I saw them in Irving Plaza in May of 2011 on the Forevermore tour, which was amazing. That Doug Aldrich on guitar. It was packed to the gills in Irving Plaza. We were all like sardines in there. They were amazing that night. Probably the most fun I ever had on a Whitesnake show, at a Whitesnake show, was probably on the Purple tour in 2015, July of 2015 at Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. And, my wife and I stayed there for the weekend and, didn't have to drive anywhere. Went to happy hour beforehand, had a great dinner, just got totally annihilated. But for me, it's like hearing any band play those like classic Mark III era Deep Purple songs for the first time ever was, for me, really, really special. I sang like every word to every song. People who were sitting around me were looking at me like I was out of my mind, but I was like totally in the element. And that was pretty memorable as well. But, that first time on the Crew tour, that was pretty damn special. But so those are mine, off the rough.
Nice.
Good.
All right, I wanted to throw in one. My favorite classic rock band is Pink Floyd. So in 1987, I went to the Momentary Lapse of Reason tour at the Meadowlands. Great show, biggest production I ever had seen up to that point. Then when they came back in '94, they got a bootleg tape of when they played Yankee Stadium. Now this
I
show,
was at that show. That was very cool.
this show was kind of crazy. So I didn't have tickets for the show. The day of the show, one of my friends dropped out, couldn't make it to the show. They had a ride and everything. They knocked on my door. I had like 10 minutes to jump in the car. I go, they had mescaline at the time. We're all tripping balls on the way down. We had like 3 cars, and they wanted to stop at this bar in the Bronx before the show, the pregame. And one of the guys in our car, we were driving around looking for a parking spot. 2 of the cars had parked. And he's like, well, just let me out now. Let me out now. He jumps out of the car, goes into the bar. We go around the corner thinking we're going to just go around the corner and park. And we end up like going through a tunnel. And this is before GPS. So we get totally fucking lost. We're like, fuck it. He'll get a ride with those guys. We'll meet him at the show. Then we realize that we got his ticket. So we get to the Yankee Stadium and we go where the big giant baseball bat was. And we figure we'll stand up there and we'll have to see him coming, and we'll find him. So as we're sitting there, thousands of people are going up the stairwell. And my friend's like, yo, I got to piss really bad. He goes, I'm going to go right here. And I was like, there's daylight and there's millions of people. He goes, I'm just going to go in the corner here. So I'm looking down over the railing where the baseball bat is, and he's pissing, and there's a drain right there. And the piss is going through the drain, and there's thousands of people coming up, and everybody's looking up and like touching their head and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, you're gonna get fucking killed, dude. His one piss, he probably pissed on like 1,000 people.
Ooh, who is it? Name the name. Who is it? Who is it, Ralph?
It's my friend Dennis Leakey.
Okay, I want to know.
Don't.
Anyway,
Oops.
so at one point we can't find my friend, so they give me the ticket. I'm tripping hard now. And they give me the ticket. They go, Ralph, go to the seats and see if he's in there. I'm like, all right. So I get in there, and they got Pink Floyd has a big dome. They had seats behind the dome, and I'm thinking this can't be right. I'm like, how the fuck can you see anything? So I bring it to a ticket window, and the lady goes, oh, honey, you ain't gonna see nothing from there. She takes my ticket and gives me another ticket. Now I'm supposed to go back out on the rail and wave to them to say if they're there or not. Now Pink Floyd starts, and I'm just like, fuck it, I'm going in to see the show.
Screw them. I'm going.
Yeah.
And I was tripping. I didn't know where I was supposed to wave to him anymore. So I just go down, and now I'm like 9th row, and I'm in the handicap section. So I right when I walk in, I have to walk right in the front row. I walk right in front of David Gilmour playing the lead. I'm like, oh my God, And I sit down. I was so fucked up. I pulled out my bag of weed and I gave it to some guy in a wheelchair. He rolled up 4 joints. We partied like crazy. Then we also said that at the end of the show, if we get separated, we'll all meet back at the baseball bat. I completely forgot about that. I went right to the car. And because I had cigarettes, all these people were coming up, yo, you got cigarettes? I said, yeah, here you go. They're like, oh, here's a cap of mushrooms. And then all their friends wanted cigarettes. So, and luckily I had extra packs. So I was trading cigarettes for mushroom caps. And it was just fucking crazy. So, and then the third time I seen Pink Floyd, they played Giant Stadium. And for like a month before the show, we couldn't find no acid or mushrooms or anything. And for Pink Floyd, it's kind of essential. So the day we get to the show, we had a half an hour to try to find something in the parking lot. And we ended up finding a bag of blue mushrooms, which I've never seen before. They were so fresh, like they were picked that morning. And we were rushing it. So everybody took a little bit because they're worried about how much. And me and my one friend, we drank a bottle of rum on the way down. So we just fucking started eating everything that those guys didn't eat. Anyway, by the break time of the show, they do like half the show and then there's like a half an hour break. By the time that hit, every time I looked up, all I seen was lasers and shit. I couldn't even focus on the show at all. It was like the only bad trip I ever had, like at a show like that. And I had to like leave the show like halfway through. And the second I got out of the parking lot and got the openness and the fresh air, I felt great. And I wanted to go back in, but they wouldn't let me. But while the show was going on, I had like someone's head was right in front of me. I had knees behind me. I was in the middle. Yeah, you know how it is. So yeah, it was just crazy. And then, so I don't want to spend too much time, but I seen Roger Waters like 8 times after that. I seen David Gilmour solo, and they were all normal stories. But so my other one is Black Sabbath. So that was 1986 at the Meadowlands with Wasp and Anthrax opening up.
Yeah, I was there.
Glenn Hughes singing, Eric Singer on drums, Dave Spitz, Dan Spitz brother on bass. And so that show, we all heard the disaster story of that show. Glenn Hughes got like punched by a roadie like the day before the tour started. He couldn't sing for shit. I remember he said, "Oh, we're gonna do Heaven and Hell now," and people sitting next to me were like, "Yeah, let's see you try to sing that one," And people just like, one of my friends fell asleep during the show.
Oh man.
Anthrax pretty much stole the show at that time, so that was pretty disappointing. Then, I seen them with Tony Martin with Morbid Angel and Motorhead when they came to the Roseland. But then I didn't see him again. I seen him as many times as I could once they reunited with Dio and with Ozzy. My favorite of all those ones was when they played the Meadowlands with Pantera and Deftones. We took a limousine down. We didn't even go in for the Deftones. We stayed in the limousine and partied. And then that was just a great full headline set by Sabbath with Bill Ward was in the band. A lot of those Ozfest, they seemed like short sets. Like that seemed like the one full set that I got. So I really loved seeing them that time. But then the very final time I seen him on the end tour, on the way down, it was just me and my wife going down, and we actually left really early. We're going to get there and hang out in the city before. So we stop at this little pull-off right before you get on the George Washington Bridge, where we always stop to go to the bathroom one last time. Because once you get in the city, you're kind of screwed till you get into the place. So that's usually where we'll smoke up before we go into the city too, So she was in the bathroom. I was already back in the car. So I pack a bowl and I start smoking it. And the cop sticks his head right in the window. And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" And I was just like, "Oh, geez." And so they get me out of the car. I'm thinking I'm just going to get like a ticket, in New York. It was no big deal at the time. But I didn't realize there was that little 8-mile section before you hit the city where you're actually in New Jersey. And what a nightmare it ended up being. They ended up bringing me to the police station. They took pictures of all my tattoos and stuff. He made it like it was going to be a quick little thing, He's like, "Oh, don't worry, you'll make it to the show." He knew we were going to Black Sabbath and stuff. And I ended up having to go to court like 5 times for it. I got a $1,000 fine. They wanted me to go again a 6th time all the way down in New Jersey for court. And I said, "Just give me a fucking fine already. I'm sick of this shit, And but yeah, it was a big nightmare. They suspended my license in New Jersey, and I wasn't even driving, and it was in a parked car. What a nightmare. But I get to the show and I missed like 4 songs. So my Sabbath career started with a shitty show and then ended with a pretty shitty show. But yeah, that's it pretty much. Yeah, I seen that Satyricon show that Scout was at, and Jamie's Dio, Motorhead, and Iron Maiden. I went to that show twice in 1 week, which I never do. I know a lot of these guys do that. You go multiple times, but that tour I had to see it twice. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I haven't smoked in about 15 years, but the best weed I ever had was at Pink Floyd 1994 in Pittsburgh. Each bud looked like a Christmas tree. You could hang ornaments off those buds, man. And then my buddy at the show is just giving it away to people. I'm like, "Dude, not that weed."
Now all the weed looks like that. The way that everybody's growing the shit.
And they had a blimp. Remember, they had a Pink Floyd blimp that year for that tour. And it went over my house that morning as I was going to work. I was like, "I'll see you tonight."
Very cool.
I seen Roger Waters one time on Dark Side of the Moon tour. It was his birthday. It was a full moon, and they released the pig, and it was at PNC, so it was open. They released it, and it just floated off into the up towards the moon. It was
like
unbelievable. Yeah, it just kept going. I was thinking like, this is gonna fucking land on someone's house, and I wondered like if they had to talk to the airports and stuff and say, "Hey, we're gonna have this pig floating around for a couple days out there." They let the air out and it only went for a couple of hours and came down someplace. I don't know, but it'd be pretty cool. You wake up the next day and there's a big.
There it is, just sitting there.
Sitting on your lawn, yeah. Like, what the
Why is there an inflatable pig in my backyard or stuck in my tree or
Some
whatever?
old folks that don't know Pink Floyd from like a whole.
No, they were like,
the fuck
"The
is
hell
it?"
this?" Yep,
That'd be ultimate collectible.
yep.
Yeah, it would.
For sure. Well, there you have it, everybody. Lots of concert tales, first dates with some of our favorite bands, some good stuff, some bad stuff, some all things in between. And Lots of discussion about DRUGS, right? So there you have it. You learn lots of
Don't
things
tell
here
Rich
on
Pitino.
Team.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Rich wouldn't have liked this episode, right?
No, not at all.
Legal activities.
That's right. That's right. So
I
well,
kept
You'd have to
legal
take a
most
P
places.
test at work tomorrow.
There you go. Yeah.
Nice.
So everybody watching, list some of your favorite first dates with some of your favorite bands down in the comments below, and how those compared to other times you saw those bands. And thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all
the damn time.
See you next Monday here on the Hudson Valley Squares. For Butch, for Bryce, for Ryan, for Karen, for Jamie, for Ralph, for Chris, I am Pete. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow and in the proxy. Take care. Bye-bye.